Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out on this gorgeous day. Perfect Earth does grounded conversations because we promote better relationships between people and nature, which starts in your yard and in your land. And so we think about all the ways that how you can, one of our things is to close the loop on your property so nothing leaves your property. So how can we gracefully always return biomass to the ground? Because we have gotten into a cycle of disrupting what Paul Hawken calls the carbon flow. And so, we don't poop where we eat and we don't die where we live. And we've done all through since we became civilized, we do not gift our bodies back to the earth. A huge industry has been born about actually poisoning our bodies and making them unavailable to the earth. So we're running out of space for that kind of work. And there's lots of wonderful options. And people are worried about all the different things and how can we do it? So I was having dinner not that long ago, and it turned out of 14 people eating dinner together, 12 of them had somebody's ashes in their home at that given evening, myself included. And so, what's that about? And so that's really what got me thinking about all of this. And why are we, what is the functional relationship we can have with the fact that we too are biomass? We too are a functioning part of the web of life. So first up, Joe Charap, who is the vice president of landscape at Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. And you've probably read about him because he's doing amazing things at Greenwood. Yes, you are. And and taking what we're talking about to this other level. So not only is he creating an atmosphere, people who can come to the cemetery just to enjoy it and make it toxic free and safe for people to come, but also exploring all the other things that you have a new visitor center, right? And so many reasons to go, but today we're going to focus on the actual working cemetery of it. And Joe's been becoming an expert in many, and I asked him, also, what else to say, and I'm just going to say he's kind. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. So, has anyone been to Greenwood before? Okay. Yes. Also, for those who haven't, it's a 478-acre National Historic Landmark in Brooklyn, New York. And cemeteries are not typically hubs of innovation, but there have been some recent developments in final disposition that I'm happy to tell you about. One of them is terramation, or human composting, also known as natural organic reduction. This is currently legal in 14 states. The first was Washington in 2019. New York became legal in December of 2022, and in early 2023, Greenwood began looking to bring this process to our grounds. We visited facilities in the Pacific Northwest, and how they approached it really didn't match with what we wanted to bring to Greenwood. And then we began developing our own concept, working with an expert in large cadaver composting, whose claim to fame was that they had composted a whale, and at Cornell University, and worked with them on perhaps bringing something unique to Greenwood about this process. Along the way, we found a company called Meine Erde in Germany that we have since partnered with. The reason that the relationship between Greenwood and a German proprietor works so well is that in Germany, the remains after the process of terramation have to stay on the grounds. And in the Pacific Northwest, you're able to take those remains home with you. We're also highly regulated, as they are in Germany, and we have now been in a engagement with them. The process of terramation goes like this. A body is placed on a substrate of organic material, hay, straw, alfalfa, wood chips, leaves. It's in a large tub, which think of it like a recycled bathtub with a lid. The lid is closed. The body is then rocked gently for 15 to 20 minutes a day at 145 degrees. Oxygen is pumped into the chamber, and at the end of 40 days, the body is no more. the body is turned into organic matter. After that, the remains are then placed on a conveyor and homogenized together so there are no bone fragments, etc. And then the compost itself is cured for around 30 days. So I no one oohed and ahhed about the fact that you can convert a body into usable soil in 40 days, but it's an incredible thing. For a cemetery such as ours that has spaces at a premium, this provides another way to use space differently. We also do scattering of cremated remains, which at the form of Greenwood takes the form of a containerless burial. Human ashes are incredibly alkaline and contain great deals of high percentages of salt and phosphorus. So they're essentially toxic to plant life. We mix this ashes with a product called Let Your Love Grow, which neutralizes and makes all of these elements inert. There's a sample of it out there. And then we place this, we dig a hole and we place the remains mixed with this substrate at the bottom of the hole. We've sold these as tree lots and different forms of lots at Greenwood. There is also aquamation, which is not legal in New York, but legal in around 22 states. This is the process by which a body is dissolved in a bath of water and alkali, slightly heated. It produces no carbon emissions and uses 90% less energy than cremation. There is also conservation cemeteries, which Greenwood is not one, but it is this idea that you are permanently protecting land and via an easement or what else is there? There's land trust as well. And so a conservation cemetery layers burial on top of land preservation. Now, most traditional cemeteries have green burial sections, but this is a distinct entity from that, really emphasizing the importance of land preservation through the act of minimal burial activities. So burials occur there, but they do so in a way that is minimally invasive into the landscape. And that's what's happening in cemeteries today, folks.
Thank you, Joe. And so you're all going to have lots of opportunity to ask questions. We're just doing a quick overview of what the options are. And so just hold your questions until the end. I hope you can. And so now I'm introducing Amy Cunningham. She's a fully licensed funeral director and death educator after being a journalist for many years. So not only it's really great working with her because she keeps us on our talking points and she's doing an amazing job of getting the word out in a way that is friendly and totally not intimidating and very engaging and super eloquent. So she now is a proponent of green burials and knows everything about green burials. So what is a green burial? How does it differ from other kinds, and who can do it, and how?
A green burial is a way to lovingly care for our dead in a way that does not harm the planet, does not harm the soil. In fact, nourishes it. I want you each to take your hand and hold your forearm, okay? You feel the soft tissue and the bone. The molecules in our soft tissue have usefulness to the earth. So one argument against cremation, or one way of looking at your choices, is figuring out what is the right thing culturally and for the family and their grief, and what kind of ceremony do you want to build when it comes time to plan any funeral, your own or a loved one's. So a green burial is just back to the frontier of America, the way we used to do, with no chemical embalming, no concrete box in the grave, just having a grave in the earth and a bathed and wrapped deceased person. And in some cemeteries, you don't even need a casket. but a green burial can actually take place in almost any cemetery in one of these biodegradable vessels that we have out here from Passages International. It's just returning the body to the land from which we sprang, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It's as simple and as elegant a disposition as any can be. And it's our teachers are the Jewish people and Muslims, because both of those religions honor the dead by returning them to the soil. We want the body to decompose. We're done with that old-fashioned notion of, oh, you have to preserve them, you have to put them in a 20-gauge steel casket, you have to protect from the water that runs through the soil. None of that anymore. Jewish people understand this instinctively, that let's just put the body in the earth. It knows what to do. Also, a characteristic of a green burial, as I supervise them in New York, is that there's a lot of family engagement. There's an informality to the ceremony, and families can lower their loved one themselves into the ground if they're up for that. Also, we're going to have a shrouding demonstration where I'll show you how in one of these beautiful silk burial shrouds, you can, at the place of death, at the time of death, or at the funeral home, partake in the act of saying farewell to your loved one by wrapping them in beautiful fabric. And we have some burial shrouds here for you to examine and appreciate. We can also put people in their own cotton clothes, linen clothes, simple clothes. So I love this kind of funeral, and as sad as death can be, sometimes it's a drug overdose or a suicide. I have to tell you that when I help people deliver a deceased person to a beautiful, natural setting, grieving people need to be out of doors. So when we have these funerals, folks leave them feeling so uplifted, like, oh my God, this has been awful, but we've done the right thing. So the environmentally friendly choice is an excellent one. And I think our other speakers, and we're going to take your questions afterwards, and also have a shrouding demonstration before we all depart. Thank you.
Okay, Darren. So Darren is mentioned he founded and runs Passages International and is responsible for so much of the wonderful examples of different options that are out here. But he is also the president of the Green Burial Council, so he's extraordinarily well informed on that. But as a funeral director, innovator, he's going to speak about what are the innovations that he has brought to this world that was quite stuck in the past. You go to a funeral home and you've probably got the same old story of what you had to do. And that's not true anymore. The funerals now have you have a big menu of options. But I was hoping that Darren could also talk a little bit about what are people's concerns about cremation now, and what are some of the responses that he has, because it's interesting.
Well, good afternoon. I think it's important when we're talking about sustainability and green as it pertains to funerals that we look at cremation, because as of last year, 60% of people in this country get cremated, and that number is projected to go up. And so we would be doing the environment a disservice if we were not to look at that, even though cremation is probably not one of the most sustainable choices you could make. You're heating an oven to 1,600 degrees. There's also emissions. You're burning fossil fuels, there's emissions. However, cremation often provides a lot of flexibility for families, because you have time to make decisions in terms of how you want to memorialize or what you want to do to memorialize. But I think when I got into this business in the early 2000s, 7 out of 10 people were buried. Today, 7 out of 10 people are cremated. And And they're really looking for different things. And I think people have moved away from conventional burial. Conventional burial, typically, as Amy said, was about preservation. We're preserving the body. Green burial is more about returning to the earth like every other living thing does when it dies. But people are less inclined to want to spend the money on conventional funerals. We're less religious. We are more transient. We don't live in the same place that we were born or where we die. So there's a lot of variables that have moved us away from conventional burial to cremation. But at our company, we believe in looking at ways to make cremation more environmentally friendly. So, for example, we have some products that the body can be placed in for cremation that actually cremates at a lower temperature, meaning you can use less fossil fuel. It also cremates more completely. And it's also made of a sustainable material as well. It also doesn't emit any toxic chemicals. A lot of products that are cremated, when they are cremated, they have things like plastic and polyester linings and zip ties and those types of things. And when they burn, they emit toxic chemicals into the environment. On the other side of that, you mentioned that 10 out of 12 people at your dinner party had cremated remains in their home. That number is estimated to be 30 million people in the United States have cremated remains. So the industry has not done a very good job of educating people about the unique things they can do with cremated remains. And so our company also has a large portfolio of products that allow people to do different things to honor and celebrate their loved ones in a way that's sentimentally significant and meaningful to them, often at a very affordable price. And so, I would really encourage you to look at all the options, listen to all the speakers, and consider something that is meaningful and important to you, because, what's green for you may not be green enough for me. It might be too green for you. And so there are definitely shades of green out there. And a lot of the decisions that you can make are going to have an environmental impact.
Thank you. So, questions are building, I bet. so yeah, okay. Gabrielle. Gabrielle works with Joe at Greenwood Cemetery. She's a death educator there. And she's trained for this. So one of the questions I have is, what the heck is thanatology? And she's a thanatologist or whatever. And also to explain to us the difference between the different kinds of end-of-life care that not only serve the person who is dying, but the people who love them.
Yeah. So think of a death educator a little bit on the academic side. Like a thanatologist is someone that studies mainly the science, but also the science of ritual with death, dying, grief, and loss. A death doula, I know for a fact there are 2 other death doulas in the space right now. Please raise your hand. Okay, 3. Please come talk to all of us afterwards, because a death doula, think of it as non-medical palliative care, of course, but also since it's not very regulated, we all have our own unique offerings. So some of us support pre-planning, active dying situations, and aftercare. So everyone is a little different, but we all have something really unique to offer. I'll tell a quick story of a family I supported where the hospice nurse was being the hospice nurse, right? The hospice nurse was administering medication, making sure that the pain management was taken care of. And then I walk in as the doula, and I'm helping bridge the gap between how the hospice team talks to the family and how I can be of service. And this particular woman I knew loved Dirty Dancing. And there was a TV in the room. I was like, all right, log into my Amazon account, put on Dirty Dancing. We don't want her to leave this life without hearing Patrick Swayze's voice one more time. I was happy to do that. Her last meal was chocolate pudding, so I made sure I went and I got chocolate chapstick, and I let the team there, including the family, myself, and the hospice nurse know, let her have a last lick of chocolate. Here is a little chapstick. because end of life moisture is very important in the lips. So those are kinds of the things that a doula is aware of and is thinking about. And we help you rewrite, or uncover rituals from your family's past, your chosen family's past, or how you want to write the future of how you do death together. And I think that's quite the honor, and I'm really happy and grateful I get to bear witness to that with families. But yeah, so that's kind of the holistic overview of what a death educator versus a hospice nurse versus a doula is, and I'm happy to answer any and all other questions. Was there anything else you wanted me to cover right now, though, Edwina?
No, we're going to let everybody ask
Very
questions.
good.
I'm just going to introduce Faith. Does she need you've got this
I
goes
got it.
this way, that way. So Faith hardly needs an introduction because she's one of our local treasures. She founded Faith Popcorn's Brain Reserve. When was it? 1974. So Faith is a futurist. So she's here to talk to us, and she's right, 90% of the time?
95.
95.
But
There
the
you
other
go.
didn't happen yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's next in the world of not just what's next in the world of the funerals, what's next in the world of dying, and what might you be thinking about, and the things that people forget to think about to make their lives, because maybe like Darren mentioned, that the family isn't really ready to decide, to deal with it. So they just get you cremated and put you in the closet because you never had that conversation with your family and nobody knows what to do. So go Faith.
Okay. So all is not lost because you don't have to die. Here's how it goes. This whole echo reckoning, right, is what we're talking about today. But rather than making a state plan, and we have some ideas out there, a list of everything you should have, a lot of stuff you probably don't have that you need to have, so the family doesn't kill each other after you're gone. Anyway, echo reckoning. So people are really doing DIY death. So this is part of How Do I Want It? Beautiful casket. I'm Jewish, so we always did it right from the beginning. We just throw somebody in a pine box and that's it. But here's the thing, not who gets my stuff, but who gets me. So not who gets my money, and this could interrupt actually a lot of people waiting to get your money, but who gets me. And we're seeing that consciousness is going to be and is currently being uploaded. So yeah, your body dies, so you guys are still in business, everything is good. However, yourself, your brain, your history is being uploaded into a computer, uploaded into a computer. And this uploading can also read the newspaper and other things, so it's be up to date. It has your voice, it has your personality, it knows everything you've ever said and done, and it keeps learning. Now, here's the problem about inheritance. Well, you can imagine, oh my God. So do we do inheritance at the date? They call it DOD. I'm becoming familiar with that with my kids. Date of death. Is that date of death? Is that when we distribute the money? Or do we keep, kind of hang on to it because suppose we need more electricity, et cetera, water, and the kind of executor you're going to need to have your consciousness going, is going to be. So it kind of takes away, it's ashes to ashes, yeah, about the body. But the mind can, the consciousness can and will go on. So that means, here's the good part. You like playing Scrabble with your grandmother. Your grandmother can be a hologram. She can go back and forth with you, same old jokes, everything. She's learned yesterday's news, today's news, and you can play Scrabble. Or you can have a chat. I mean, how many of us have said, oh, I wish I could ask my mother or father, my grandmother, this one last thing. Hey, well, you can now. So that's cool. That's really good. What
may be a little complicated is who wants to be uploaded? I do. How the family is going to feel about you being uploaded? Will there be laws over uploading of consciousness? How will all the religions feel about, hey, there is no end? Is this a delay in, some people think, meeting your maker? I mean, JC has to wait till you decide you're going to turn it off, or what? Or did he just meet your body? All kinds of questions. So it, just when you thought things were nice and you could just disintegrate on a bunch of flowers, you see that it's more complicated than that, as usual. So anyway, that's basically what I want to talk about. Not who gets my money, but who gets me. So thank you.
And we have a sheet outside with a lot of Faith's recommendations. So,
Yeah, but that's the basic stuff. You know, I bet you half the people here don't have all the paperwork they need.
at least, probably, right? Yeah, we could. Does anybody raise their hand and say, like, who actually is prepared? Won't embarrass you that way, because myself included. But so I have one question for all of you before we move on to questions from the audience. And so could each of you tell us what decision you have made about your remains? Go.
My husband and I love history, love Brooklyn. So about 15 years ago, we bought plots at Greenwood. And I intend to be placed into the earth in a burial shroud and a tray, surrounded by lots and lots of flowers.
I'm already pre-grieving.
Music is important to me, so I'd like live music at the graveside. Poetry is important to me too, so I'll leave some poems and poets to my husband. And also, I raised two boys, now both trial attorneys. I carried them in pregnancy. It means something to me. I'm not laying a trip on them, but I want them to carry me at some point. That would be meaningful to me, I think, and to them. I've come around. You're not laying a trip on somebody when you ask them to do something for you that way. You're giving them the gift of caring for you, and that's very beautiful.
Well, thank you for asking that question. I've had to really scramble to think of an answer. I have been pondering it, actually, but I think I would probably be cremated in a solar-powered crematory with a sustainable and clean-burning container, and then I would have my ashes scattered in multiple sentimentally significant places around the globe where I have lived, and I would geolocate those areas and create a digital memorial associated with each of those spaces and share it all with friends and family online so that on their travels around the globe, they could come and visit me.
Wonderful. So I just want my consciousness uploaded because I can just go on going, see, I was right. See, I was right. Look, yeah, it's 15 years, but we are on Mars and beyond. So that's, and you know, my kids, I mean, you know, they'll come because I am going to have the most spectacular party ever. I've like made a list of all the alcoholic beverages that I would like serve, favorite champagnes and wines, and then for those non-alcoholic people, okay, they can come too, and they can drink whatever they want. So I have that part planned. I want it to be happy, really happy. But I love the idea of going on. I'm just too curious to die. Anyway.
But what happens to your body?
Oh, we just throw it in a pine box.
Okay.
If you want to bother.
And
even.
where?
If you want to bother.
Well, we have a plot somewhere that nobody ever visits, or maybe Wainscott Cemetery,
Okay.
or next to my dogs in my backyard. Oops, you're not supposed to bury dogs. And I want to live long enough to hear dogs talk. I think that is coming. So there.
I would love to know what my cat thinks about me. So
I do too. I do too.
I've thought about this quite a lot as well. I would love to be terramated. And if the laws were different, I would want to be put in my Uncle Vinny's tomato garden. But that doesn't exist anymore. So loophole to keep with the theme of Uncle Vinny. At Greenwood, there is a beautiful sweeping view of Manhattan, and he was a firefighter. He died of 9/11 related cancer, and I just know that he would want to see that skyline again, and I'd want to like be there with him. So I would love to be there. If I'm gonna put in my order now.
Okay. I would be terramated, and I would want my remains to go to a place that my family would like to visit, which is not always the case with where people are buried. So as long as I can go back to the earth and my family wants to come visit, that's enough for me. Every now and again. They don't have to make a big deal about it. But
So, I've just learned in the process of all of this, so that's sort of, I'm going to actually pose a question with my answer. I'd love to be a green burial on my own property. And I think that because of the way the environment's going, my property's probably going to be unsaleable by the time I die if I make it to a full age. So my poor daughter, she's not going to be able to sell it. And so one of the things, so my question, Amy, I think it's you who mentioned that you can do it. You can arrange for home burial. Yeah. And then people start asking questions. But tell us a little bit about how, is it? Should I send this down?
Yes, but it's not something you do quickly. You need a couple of years to get your family burial ground organized, and you have to have a lot of land. And the state of New York requires that this plot be, I think, 1,650 feet from the road. You have to have it surveyed. So it's no casual thing in New York State. Most of the time, depending upon the village you live in and the policies of your local jurisdiction, the town you reside in. And it's on your property, that grave, that cemetery, will be monitored by the Board of Cemeteries. And you have to have a board of directors governing your family cemetery, and a name to the cemetery as well.
Sounds worth it to me.
But, because one of the things that thinking about, and then everybody's telling, is that basically, the whole thing about me being uploaded or me having a digital art form, that's going to be important to maybe one generation. And then after that, I think they could let it go, right? The energy to keep your uploaded faithness, you'll live, you'll go on forever. Your reputation will take you there into ageless time. But me, one word, my daughter and maybe my grandson will yeah. But after that, his kids aren't going to know who the heck I was. So I just as soon be back to the earth, because this is one of my questions for everybody is are you afraid of being eaten? Because in nature, very few animals, it's just not done. You don't die of old age. You start to lose your agility. You start to lose your ability to survive, and something eats you. You become prey. But humans have decided we're not part of nature. So ever since time immemorial, we mummify, or we remove ourselves from this process. It's just really interesting because now it's become so baked in that we do not wish to be eaten, even by microbes. So how does that work? So people are fine with being consumed by fire. And I just think it's sort of a very interesting disconnect for which I do not have any answer. Mm-hmm. Who has a question? Okay, Ramesh.
You want to give him the mic?
You can probably hear me. Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can what's left over from terramation be used for cultivation, like putting it into your garden?
By New York state law, none of the terramated remains can leave a cemetery. This is not the case in the Pacific Northwest, elsewhere, but that is the law in New York state. And so ideally, the remains would go to some place at the cemetery of your choosing where they can be incorporated into the landscape and cultivate something there, but not at home.
In terms of what the content of the remains are, is there anything toxic or?
No. Does anyone want the sort of the technical component of this? Is anyone interested in how this works?
Sure.
Okay, so there's nothing added to the terramation process except oxygen, enough microbes and moisture in your body to basically break everything down. At the end of 40 days, when you open one of these vessels, you might imagine that the bones are in the layout of a body. In fact, because of that, even that gentle motion has activated the microbial process to lead decomposition. The bones are all over, and they are so desiccated that there's no marrow present. They can be snapped very easily, and the material is more like a light mulch, and then it has to be processed together, similar to a cremation or an aquamation where the bones are taken out elsewhere, but the bones are part of this whole process, and there is nothing toxic in it. Molars, dental work, all are removed prior, so are prosthetic limbs and pacemakers, etc., similar to how a burial will be performed.
So, just a question. So, are they going to change the laws in New York? Are people working towards that so that it could come here, or could you take your body to a state where it is legal and then bring them back?
So that's something we're actually looking into the legality of whether or not we can actually intake teramated remains that are processed elsewhere. We are building the first facility in New York State. We just submitted our application with the Division of Cemeteries to build a 14-pod site. And I think the laws will eventually change, but it is the New York State legislature, so things move slowly. But yeah.
And how much is it?
It's around 250 pounds.
250 pounds?
Yeah.
The pod?
What's that?
The pod is 200.
The remains.
It weighs more than you do?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because you're being mixed with organic matter. It's not as if you're, it's just your body.
Yeah, you're not on your own.
Yeah.
Brown thing, right?
Yeah.
You
Well-
have to keep taking Ozempic then.
Indeed.
Okay.
So I like the idea of not doing anything harmful. I'd also like to do something useful. And I don't know if this is just weirdness on the internet, but I was reading about something where you can have your remains, and I don't know in what state, mixed with some kind of composite that helps nourish coral reefs. Oh, can you talk about that? Somebody talk about that?
Yeah, Ian?
I think the company is called Eternal Reefs. And what actually happens is that they take cremated remains. They would probably take the remains from an aquamation also, and they mix it with a polymer or concrete ball and sculpt it into a ball, a very porous ball that is lowered into the bottom of the ocean at particular sites in Florida. Last I heard, is that right? I think there are 2 sites in Florida. Sometimes people do this with pet remains also, and he gives you the opportunity to have a little plaque. You can scuba dive down there and visit your loved one. And, it's tough these days to grow coral reef, but it's said to be possible. And they have photos on the website, Eternal Reefs. I don't know
It's a
that.
little ball that's placed strategically.
It's a huge concrete mass.
Yeah,
They
use several people's remains in each ball.
I'm not sure how useful it is. You mentioned being useful. I'm skeptical.
It's a little bit like they use the Tappan Zee Bridge. Didn't they put that somewhere to reinforce reefs or something? So it's kind of just physical matter that's going to help.
I think barnacles will grow on almost anything. We could scuttle an aircraft carrier and it would grow barnacles on it.
Okay, thank you.
So did you raise your hand earlier?
I only had a question. Are you planning to use those terramated remains at Greenwood in the gardens or as an additive? Is that?
Yes, we are.
With the mic.
Oh, thanks. So we're currently building our menu of options for where the terramated remains can go, but they will go to either a specific landscaped area or be incorporated into the landscape otherwise.
You'll just store them in the meantime?
Well, so they require about a month to cure, and then we can figure out what we can do with it, depending on the season. I mean, if it's in the winter time, we can't really do much with it at the time, but we can just keep it until we can.
I'll say one quick thing too.
Please.
We're also in the process of writing the rituals together, like both in community and internally as an organization, how we want to do the rituals around terramation, right? We have the run of show, if you will, for a burial, for a cremation, what a service looks like and feels like. And I think what we're really excited about is to be able to offer this menu, but to kind of like birth it together, just at where we are in human history right now and innovation in the funeral industry. There's so many things that can be done, and we're excited to see what we're going to be able to offer at Greenwood.
Question.
What about a sequence where we just want the body in a pine box in the earth? Yeah. As simple as possible. My understanding is that in order to gather the family together for a service, you have to have refrigeration for the number of days until the family gathers if the body is just in a pine box. Is that the case, or what's the story with that?
Mm-hmm. A wonderful question to always answer, to ask your funeral home is, do you have refrigeration? Because you're correct. There's never any need to embalm, even if there's a 5-day delay, which wouldn't frequently happen in a Jewish case. But refrigeration keeps a deceased person in excellent shape until the burial can take place. Jewish funeral homes serve all people, and they are well acquainted with this kind of method of avoiding chemicals and providing only the simplest biodegradable caskets without any polyurethane on them or brass hardware or all that silliness, just into the ground. And the pine box is sweet smelling and a very lovely vessel, I think, with or without the Jewish star, depending on your belief system.
Thank you.
So, Amy, while you've got the mic, I think you found out where the cemeteries are in this.
I have a handout of 14 or 15 cemeteries in the New York State area, one in Connecticut, a couple great ones in New Jersey that will bury, about half of them will bury in a tray without a casket at all. The body is wrapped to the deceased. I try to avoid using the word body. It's a deceased person. It's someone's grandmother. They're wrapped in beautiful fabric, surrounded by flowers, and you just need to keep that body straight for the lowering into the grave. And then any cemetery will take that herringbone casket or a pine box or that kind of vessel. That's just a casket, and it's biodegradable, and those kinds of caskets are going into the veterans cemeteries like Calverton and National, and completely accepted for the most part. There's a few outliers, but not many anymore. This movement is taking off, and our team is winning. We are revolutionizing the funeral industry, which is a $21 billion funeral. It's a business in the United States. And families are insisting upon more control. They're saying to the funeral director, no, I want to come in and fix my mother's hair if there's going to be a viewing, or I want to help bathe her body. People are so courageous today, and they want control, and they want to see more. And I lectured to funeral directors today, many of them in the business for 40 years, and I tell them, get ready, this new family is coming, and they are wanting a different kind of service. And I think the funeral business, and Darren's been part of it, is really listening now. The last 10 years of conventions that we've been going to, we've seen a dramatic acceptance and a recognition that, wow, we have to get with the times and understand that all people are interested in taking care of the environment. I have one quick story. One of the finest conservation grounds in the United States is ironically in the very red state of South Carolina. And the man who manages that cemetery, his name is Billy Campbell. And Billy said that one day the biggest Republican in town came to his conservation cemetery ground wanting to buy a grave. And Billy said, well, Sam, I'm surprised to see you here. And Sam said, oh, Billy, I love the woods. It's you environmentalists I can't stand. So we have to really recognize that this is for all people. Conservative Christians, Jesus Christ was shrouded. It's a big movement. It's really taking control, and we have had big voices and a lot of influence.
So, maybe Darren, you can take this one. Is a green burial at the same depth, or is it a shallower grave?
Usually green burial is a shallower burial, 3 to 4 feet, as opposed to 6 to 8 feet, I would say. I want to piggyback on something that Amy said as well, is I would really encourage you all to think about not only having a good funeral, but a good death. And the sooner you start talking about that and planning that, the better your passing is going to be. Because I've heard from funeral directors or families actually that, for example, the contrast between like hospice care and funeral care is pretty stark, or the difference between, dying in an emergency room or a hospital and dying in your own home. There is a movement to take back our own deaths versus it being controlled by hospitals and big corporations. And I would really encourage you to think about what that's going to be like when it happens, because last I checked, we all have 100% mortality rate. No one except you might be escaping that.
Did you have a question? I do. We have a question here.
Do I push something?
Good question.
Anyway, do I push something? Just
Oh, for termination?
We're still working that out.
There's a great newsletter, though, that you can sign up for, and we'll update you when we have those numbers.
Okay, Darren, you would probably know, what does it, out of the many, the majority, I guess, of people in the United States, cost of funeral, with average cost of funeral with the coffin and embalming or whatever, average cost of green burial, and average cost of cremation?
I think the National Funeral Directors Association says that the average cost of a funeral is about $7,000 to $8,000. I do not think that includes any cemetery costs. Cremation, you can probably Google cremation Long Island or cremation Manhattan or wherever you live. You could probably find it for under $1,000. But it really depends on what your personal values are and what you want to do. You can get your body cremated for $1,000 and throw a $100,000 party. Is that part of the funeral cost? I don't know.
And what about green burial?
Green burial, I think it's definitely less expensive than a conventional burial, I think, but it does vary depending where you do it. So if you were to do it in Brooklyn, for example, or in New York, it's going to be much more expensive than if you did a green burial in Kansas or somewhere else. And it's also going to depend a lot on what choices you make, right? If you have services or products or those types of things, they're going to add to the cost. So you can make a funeral very affordable, you can make a funeral very expensive, and that's governed by the decisions you choose to make.
We have in the back question.
Yeah, along those lines, I have listened to a few death doulas now and wondered, do you have to have a directive? And do you have to write a directive, and who do you give it to? And also, suppose you want to have your cremation and a ceremony on your own property, and that's the end of it. Or you want to be wrapped in your mother's tablecloth and a hole in your yard. Doug, can you do things that
I don't think ICE pays attention to this, so, just do whatever you want. But if you want special things, like you were asking, make sure you write everything down and get it notarized.
Mm-hmm.
And don't save money on an estate lawyer, that's not a savings, because it's going to drive everybody crazy and they're going to sue everybody after.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you want, you can have, but do it. That's one of the few things I think you must do it the legal way, otherwise it won't happen.
And that's just a document that you simply
And we have a little QR code of the documents you need.
I see, okay.
Okay.
Mhm, thank you.
This is unrelated to your question, but it's something I wanted to bring up. Space in general is a finite resource. Terramation does offer an opportunity to not take up additional space. But conservation cemeteries, what makes them distinct from traditional ones is that there is a 75-year turnover there. So once the body is fully decomposed, that space can be used again. And that presents a really unique avenue that hasn't been present in the United States in traditional cemeteries ever. So,
And is it normal? I mean, can you do it at Greenwood?
no, in Greenwood, your lot is forever is a very long time, and our mantra is that we manage in perpetuity. So, your sale, your lot, and you purchase the right for burial. You don't actually own the land itself. You own the right to be buried in that land, but that is your lot forever.
And you won't ever convert part of the cemetery?
It's not legal for us to do so. However, for a conservation cemetery, that is part of the ethos there. Yeah,
That's like 3 generations, 75 years.
that's right.
Two brief questions. I have heard and read about mushroom shrouds. Could you just comment on that? And, second one, well, two more actually, but one is about whether you are permitted to keep a body on premises if you die at home for some time afterwards for people to sit with. And a third one is for faith in relationship to uploading your mind state, and to what extent you think that is actually your consciousness.
Concrete ones.
Mushroom shroud.
Right, the mushroom shroud. I love the idea of a mushroom shroud. It really depends on the depth at which you're buried, though, to have any, because the microbial level of soil is usually in the top 6 inches or so, and everything below that is not particularly active. And so if you're being wrapped in a mushroom shroud and buried 9 feet in the ground, you're not going to do that much. But if you're buried in a shallower grave, it would produce fungal spores and you'd become the earth again. Yeah.
There are beautiful mushroom coffins out there as well. Caskets and coffins. There's a few companies that do it if you want to look it up. And then Amy, there was something that you should answer.
Keeping the body for...
Oh, yes. Wait, really quickly on that. Something I learned in my death doula course was empowering yourself with the laws of your region or your state of how long a body could be present before the funeral director, really fully has to come transport the body. And I don't know if you figured out I'm Italian yet. I think it's obvious, but Italian family, Long Island, Uncle Vinny dies. There's 50 of us all around him. The second he died, chaos. Everyone's like, call the funeral director. like running around like we can't have a dead body in the house. And I remember I just said, hold on, everyone. We can take a pause. We can sit in this sacred space together. I did the Danish ritual. I opened the window. You know, the belief is that the soul leaves through the window in the house. We did that. We all took a deep breath together. And then we put the Godfather on in the background. And then we called the funeral director.
So that's a great question about if you're uploaded, what about your soul? Does that include your soul? Which I have to say,
Is that your soul?
Or she's just said, or is that your soul? I never actually asked myself this question, so I appreciate it, and I will give it some thought. However, just off the top of my head, I think as long as you're responding and talking, inventing, and innovating, perhaps through a computer, or maybe you'll be uploaded into, you see what these robots are looking like. They're looking very, very real. So maybe you want to be uploaded into something that looks more like a person. I would think your soul is still going because it influences everything you say and think. So, maybe it's crowded up there, it's good.
More of a discussion.
Yes. It needs martinis, as most things do.
The home funeral is a real thing today, and there are death doulas and funeral directors who would support any family in taking that pause at the end of life. It works especially well, seamlessly, when hospice has been supervising that death, and the death is occurring already in a home, because then, as Gabrielle said, the family doesn't need to, it's not an emergency. You don't have to jump for the phone. Someone can come in with dry ice and wrap it in white terry cloth towels and wedge it around that deceased person to keep them as cold as possible any time of year. And this vigil can go on overnight, or with the Tibetan funerals I supervise, it can be 3 days of vigiling, chanting, even dining. There's a whole lovely rollout, giving people a lot of time to adjust to this new reality. And it's a real blessing for those families who need that time and just want to sit. Because even when you're expecting a death, when it does arrive, it's astonishing. And we're returning people to the old-fashioned way of vigiling and being with their loved ones until they're ready for the funeral home to come to the door, and they can put on great music and see their person roll out. It's nice.
Okay, I think it's time for everybody to talk amongst themselves. I just wanted one last time to point out the death educator, death doulas, and a hospice nurse, if you'd all raise your hands, because they will not be at tables. Everybody else will, you can find them at their tables, but you might like to meet your local representatives who could be there in a time of need. And also you can sign up with Perfect Earth. We do free site visits, so you can find out how you can be useful to the earth right now. Thank you.